You want some more of this, bitch?
Welcome to the Three Kings podcast, where everyday blokes act like kings.
I'm just a regular, everyday, normal motherfucker.
I told you in the first song, I'll tell you in another.
I'm just a regular, everyday, normal motherfucker.
How are yous? We're back, and today we've got a super special guest. We've got the gunslinger, John Wayne Parr. How are you?
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me.
No, thanks heaps for coming in and taking the time. Appreciate it.
Hey, nice.
We'll start off with, obviously, how'd you get into the Muay Thai kickboxing game?
As a young child, just had a fascination with martial arts. Just wanted to just be something. I wanted to be a fighter, because at the time, rock and wrestling was huge.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan was massive.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson was sort of coming up at that stage. Bruce Lee, Van Damme, all those sort of things, and just inspired me to want to be a martial artist in some form. And then I lived in the country, so always in farms and only child, so I'd shadow box in the grass, pretending I was know what I was doing. And then it wasn't until I was 11 that we moved to Brisbane, and then I started Taekwondo. I thought, oh, this is amazing. I got to wear the Taekwondo gear and doing katas, and I thought, I just want to go to Korea and do the katas with everyone in the lines like you see on the TV.
Yeah.
So I did that for about a year and a half. Got to compete in a couple of Taekwondo tournaments, and then unfortunately they couldn't make their rent anymore, so they moved out. And then about 6 months later, kickboxing moved into the same hall. I thought, it's not Taekwondo, but I'll give it a try, and I'll just do this until I find a Taekwondo school. And then from the very first kickboxing class,
You were hooked.
I'm done. This is me from now on.
Yeah.
See you later, Korea. Hello, Thailand.
Yeah, that's so good. And so what do you think made you so good for in the early days there wasn't a lot of, say, Westerners in the Muay Thai world. What made you so good for a non-Thai fighter?
Just passion. I was only 12, 13 at the time, sparring adults.
Yeah.
And then I'd hold my own, even though they were twice my size and twice my weight. I was a little mighty mouse. I'd run around and hit him with combos and run around the outside and jump back in again and hit him again. And just had that little confidence in me knowing that I could do really well.
Yeah.
And then I remember coming home from one night sparring, and I think I was 13. And I told my mum, I think I'm going to be a world champion one day. And she started laughing. Oh, that's cute, son. Like, I'm going to show you. And then I remember 10 years later, I finally won my first world title. I said, see, Mum, and she goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. I held on to the anger for all those years, and she had no idea at the time.
So you pretty much started when you were 13?
11.
11?
Yeah, so 11 for Taekwondo, and then 13 was the kickboxing. Yep.
So what age was your first professional fight?
14.
14.
Not so much. For my first ring fight was 13.
Yep.
14. I was in year 10, and then we moved to Sydney, and then I was 14 years old, and then I never seen my opponent, so I got to the weigh-in. He wasn't around, and then they've called me into the ring first, so I got in, and then the first time I seen him was when he was jumping on the ropes. I look across, and then as a 14, he had one of those 14-year-old mustaches. And I'm thinking, oh no, he's got a mustache. This guy's going to be a killer. And then it's probably like 3 strands or something. But for a 14-year-old, it's terrifying. It's like, oh my God, he's got facial hair. And then and it was a really good fight, but he just beat me on points. And I remember as I was leaving the ring, someone in the crowd goes, oh, way to go, Wayne. And then I got like a round of applause. And it was that moment. I was like, oh, I'm getting appreciated. I'm getting. This is amazing. This is so cool. And I got home and I had a little black eye and a little bit of a blood nose at the time. I told my mum, I'm in love with this sport. This is what I do. Oh, you've had your fight now. You got to play your kickboxing.
Yeah.
That should be enough, don't you think? I said, no. This is actually fueled the fire. This makes me all I want to do now. So and then at that stage, I was at the crossroads. I wanted to be a chef, wanted to be an apprentice. And then luckily, that all fell through. And then kickboxing was the only plan that I wanted to be from that age. So, got to fulfill my dream. It was very cool.
Yeah, well, it's super rare for someone to have a dream so young and then pretty much get it straight away and get to do it. So is that the pretty much only job you've ever had is fighting, is it?
When I moved out of home at 18, sorry, I was a bartender for a year.
Yeah.
Down on the Gold Coast, there's a place called Cocktails and Dreams.
Yeah.
and then downstairs from that used to be a place called The Party.
Yeah.
So I started off as a glassy, picking up this is the old days when you could still smoke so I'd have to clean the ashtrays, pick up the glasses, and once every hour I have to go up and mop the male toilets and. Just thinking, I gotta. Hopefully, I can't do this. This is gross. People are spitting on the buttons and weeing on the floor, and I'm thinking, there's got to be a better life than this. This is terrible. So even though I'd be up all night, I'd force myself to wake up, ride my push bike to training, train twice a day. Still having the dream of one day I'm only doing this nightclub business to make money to pay for my kickboxing fees, so I can still progress. And then I'm very lucky that a year later that I had a really tough fight in Sunshine Coast. I got dropped in the second round with leg kicks. And I managed to hold on and come back and knock my opponent out with about 30 seconds to go on the clock.
Yeah, right.
And then my Thai sponsor was so impressed with my performance. He goes, I really believe you have a big heart and I think you got the potential to go all the way. How would you like to go to Thailand? So, I'd love to go to Thailand. He said, if you can organise your passport, I'll do the rest. I'll organise your plane ticket. I'll give you some a place to train. I'll give you put money in your account. But the only thing you have to do is promise me that you can stay 6 months.
Yeah.
If you stay for 2 weeks or a month, you'll do the training. Then it'll all
Be for nothing.
Yeah. But if you go for 6 months, by that stage everything will stick, and then you'll be more accustomed to the sport. And so I went over for 6 months, and then had 5 fights, 5 wins. Come back to Australia again, thinking, that was amazing, what an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then very luckily that the Thai camp rang up my sponsor and said, can you please send him back? We think he has big potential in the sport. So my sponsor called me back and said, hey, do you want to go back to Thailand? I'd love to go back to Thailand. All right, so the first time was 6 months, but this time you have to promise me 1 year.
Yeah.
You can't come back for 1 year. If you come back within that time, don't bother seeing me, but if you can stay 1 year, you'll make me so proud. Oh, yeah, I'll stay. Yeah, no worries. And then, jumped back on the plane, went back to the camp. And then, ended up winning the strongest Westerner in Thailand for 1997 that year.
Yeah, right.
I got to fight in all the big stadiums and fighting on TV and making the magazines and the front covers. And it was so amazing. It was so cool. And at that time, there wasn't many Westerners
That's
too.
what I was going to say.
So,
what was it like at that time? Because there wouldn't have been many of us.
It was a lot easier to shine because there wasn't that many Westerners out there at the time.
Yeah. And how did you go with that? With there not being many Westerners, how did you adapt to, say, like the culture and the language and stuff?
Yeah, the
Just
language
being the only one.
Yeah, that was a bit tough because where I lived in Bangkok, there was imagine being the only white guy in all of Brisbane.
Yeah.
So I was that one guy. So you'd walk the streets and like kids would grab their mum by the shirt and tug them and say, "Oh, look, a weirdo," because they'd never seen a Westerner before.
Yeah.
It was. But then you sort of miss it. You miss being that special guy walking.
Yeah.
And then when you come back to Australia again, you blend in with everyone else.
Yeah,
Like,
just
this
a Joe
is
Blow.
bizarre. This is so weird. I felt more weird here than I did over there.
Yeah.
So the living conditions. So this is the fun part. So because Thailand's a third world country, they don't have sit down toilets.
Yeah.
They got the squat toilets. So when I first got to the camp, the trainers take him around and say, "This is where you're gonna sleep. This is your bathroom." I'm looking at the bathroom and it's a squat toilet, and beside the toilet was like a basin with a plastic container floating on top. And he demonstrated, you got to pour the water into your hand to wipe your butt.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Really? Oh, no. And then when you shower, you stand on the outside on the concrete and you wet yourself first, you lather up, and then you wet yourself off again. And all cold water, there's no hot water.
Yeah.
And then I went upstairs to the bedroom, and then it was 10 fighters sleeping side by side on a wooden floor. So, so it's like, oh, yeah, all right, I got it. And then there was no furniture either, so when it was time to eat our meals, we'd have to sit cross-legged on the wooden floor. So there'd be 4 or 5 dishes in the center. Everyone gets a plate of rice, and then you have to go one tablespoon at a time. You couldn't just hog in, and otherwise, so like a community meal. So you all share, all double dip with your spoons, and put your double dip in the soups, and it was a bit gross, but at the same time, it's just how it is.
Yeah.
And the training was crazy. The training was 3 hours in the morning and three and a half hours in the evening. And every day you're expected to train harder than yesterday.
Yeah.
So, and then you just get yelled. I didn't know, I couldn't speak Thai, But I knew I was getting abused from just the tone of the voice.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever he's saying, that doesn't sound good. But it pushes you to want to be great too. And then living in such poverty that all you can think about is, I've got to be successful. I don't want to be this guy. I want to own a car. I want to have a bed. I want hot water. I want a table and chair to eat at. It just really makes you not want to be poor anymore.
Yeah. And how was your work ethic compared to, say, the Tigers? Because as you said, they got nothing else to kind of live for.
Yeah, they've been starting since they're about 6 or 7, so they're already in their peak. We had some boys that like in between, say, 10 and 14, and then we had the older teenagers, then we had the guys in their 20s, and then the superstar of our camp, he was in his early 30s, and he was fighting Raymond Deckers and Danny Bills and representing Thailand. He was the guy that when any time a Westerner showed potential, they'd put him, they put same thing against him, and he'd regenerate the pride of the country.
Yeah.
So he was their go-to guy.
Yeah, they feed the wolf. He's the wolf.
And then so he was the killer. And then because he was my training partner, I'd have to spar against him. I remember the first time we did boxing sparring together. So we wear 18-ounce gloves, which are like
the massive ones,
big pillows.
Yeah.
And then the first round started, and we're going away, and I'm going about 50%. And about 60 seconds into the spar, he just drops his hands, looks at me, and he said, "If you're not going to spar me 100%, get out."
Yeah, right.
I said, "Oh, okay." And then from that moment forward, for the next 4 years, and twice a week was just surviving, not sparring, just trying to live. But yeah, it made me shine too, because I didn't want to get beat up or embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then seeing him be successful, I wanted to emulate him as well, because it's like I can see where I can be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to be like him so much.
When you first went over there for the first 6 month stint, was there any point where you're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm over it. I want to come home. Like, I miss my family. I miss what I had over in Australia? Or
So growing up as a kid, my parents were horse trainers. And so we got to move a lot when I was growing up, and I ended up going to 11 different schools and all up and down the East Coast. And I've always been like an only child. So I think that's what helped condition me to be by myself and to be in another country. I didn't get homesick because technically I never really had a home.
Yeah.
I was always so moving and always a new guy and always entertain myself anyway. So I think I was very lucky in that respect, that it's like, oh, well. And I like I was saying before, I had that dream of being a champion from a kid. So when they had the opportunity to be anywhere, if this is going to make me great, this is what I'm prepared to do.
Yeah, and you could obviously see it at a young age, so that was your motivation.
Oh, for sure. And then I had dreams of fighting at all these stadiums, and now I'm going to the stadiums to watch the star of the camp fight it. And then the promoter seeing me with him, and then all of a sudden him showing interest in me. Oh, you got this young guy with you. I'll try and get him on the shows. Next minute I'm starting to fight for the number one promoter in Thailand, and it just kept snowballing and just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
So how long did it take you to, as you said, kind of get your name and get the respect of the Thais? How long did that take?
So that first 6 months I had the 5 fights in little stadiums, just to dip my toes in. And then when they rang up and said send me back for 12 months, so I got back to the camp, and then about 2 or 3 weeks later, the superstar was having a big fight in the country. So we've jumped in the car, we've gone to the weigh-in, and then one of the Westerners from France never showed up, and the promoter's like, "Oh, what am I going to do? I was supposed to have a Westerner on the card, and he's not here. What should we do?" And my trainer puts his hand up, goes, "Oh, my young guy will fight." Yeah. And the promoter's looking me up and down, going, "Oh, I don't know who this kid is. I can't put him against a star because I don't know how good he is. I don't want to get him killed."
Yeah.
So he all right, does anyone here want to fight this Westerner? And like 50 guys put their hand up. I'm like, oh no. And then so they got everyone to stand beside me to see who was the closest in weight and height and everything else. And then one of the guys was close. "All right, tomorrow you guys are on." It's like, oh shit.
Yeah, right.
And then ended up going the 5 rounds. I got cut in the last say couple of minutes, so blood's pouring down my face, and I still managed to do enough to get the win. And then the promoter was so happy after the fight. He goes, "Oh, if I had known who you are, I would have done more. But from this moment forward, you're going to be one of my fighters. You're going to fight again next month against on TV against this superstar. It's like, holy shit. So, yeah, then it just, and then that fight, the month later, was in front of 60,000 people in open park in the south of Thailand. And then he was a former champion, a former superstar. And then in the lead up to the fight coming up, next minute he's back on the front covers of the magazines. Oh, his name's Lucktair.
Yeah.
Lucktair is back to fight the Westerner and to restore the country and the pride. And it's like, oh no. And then you rock up and you see 60,000 people. It's like, this is terrifying. And then being the white guy, you're not expected to win.
That's what I was about to say. They'd all be cheering for him.
They're all
eh?
cheering for him. And then
Yeah.
I was lucky to stop him in the third.
Yeah.
And then, then the opportunities kept coming. Then got the opportunity to fight at this famous stadium in Bangkok called Lumpini Stadium.
Yeah.
So I was the first Aussie ever to fight there.
That's the best
That's the
stadium
best,
in
the
Thailand.
best,
you know, When
yeah.
you beat a Lumpini champ, and that's you
So
go anywhere from there.
I got the fight there, and then ended up having a fourth round knockout. So it's in my head, the idea of crossing the ropes and putting my foot on the canvas, and in my mind, I'd already won.
Yeah.
I'm now officially the first Aussie. So in my mind, I was like, this is the dream. And then I look across and, oh shit, I got to fight you now. And then luckily the first 2 rounds wasn't going my way. I come back into the second and my trainer started yelling at me, what are you waiting for? Come on, you know you can do better than this. Get out there, come on. More aggression, fight harder. So then the third round, I started landing. And then I'm not sure if you know much about Thai boxing, but you start getting the roar.
Yeah.
And once you start landing, the Thais are rah,
Yeah.
rah. And I'm, shit, they're cheering for me. This is amazing. And then rah. And then that gave me more motivation to push harder. And then the more I pushed, the harder they cheered, and then end up stopping him in the fourth. So, yeah, not only be the first Aussie, but the win by knockout, it was like, oh, this is just too cool.
Just a dream come true.
Yeah, this is really cool.
So what was the first kind of biggest name or even your biggest idol that you versed over there?
Ooh, so I ended up winning my first 9 fights straight. And then I remember we were on a Saturday afternoon, we were watching the Thai boxing on the TV, and the commentators were talking about future cards coming up. And they said, all right, so next month we got Sanctonoi versus this guy, and this guy. And we got John Wayne Parr versus Orono. And the room stopped and everyone just looked at me. I'm like, what? And they go, you're fighting Orono.
So you didn't know before then?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah,
no
right.
idea. And then because I'd beaten 9 Thais, I had a little bit more confidence in now.
Yeah.
And then everyone's looking at me like, Orono. And I didn't know who he was. And they're going, no, you don't understand. You're fighting Orono, which is like the Tong Po of the kickboxing.
Yeah.
So, no worries. I've already beaten 9. I'll be right. They go, no, you don't understand. So then, the day comes. And it was the first time fighting at the stadium. So we didn't know where hotel to stay at, or we didn't know anything. And then it was 8 o'clock in the morning weigh-in. And then the TV show starts at 1 in the afternoon. So I only had
The same day?
Same day.
Yeah, right.
So in Australia, you have a 24-hour time period where you weigh in, and the next night you're fighting. Well, this is weighing in 8, and so you've starved yourself 6-7 kilos, and then you've only got time for 1 meal before your fight's at 1 in the afternoon. So I didn't quite rehydrate enough and didn't quite get enough food. The fight comes, and then I remember being in the change room before the fight actually started, and the promoter walked in the room, who's a superstar, and everyone stops and pays attention, and he goes, all right, John Wayne, today if you beat Orono, your next fight will be for a Lumpini title.
Yeah.
So holy crap, this really is the dream now. This is amazing. But unfortunately, I ended up getting cut in the second and then stopped in the third, just too much blood.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, that was 97. And then the year 2000, I was at a fight show, and it's called the King's Birthday. And what happens is the promoter gets paid by the TV. So if he does an outdoor promotion, it's free. So every year they celebrate the King's Birthday in Bangkok, and 100,000 people come to this park. So they have fireworks and dancing, and they have everything going on. In the center, they have a boxing ring, and it's surrounded by 100,000 people. And then, so the day before we had the weigh-in, I was supposed to fight a right-handed opponent. And then the promoter comes up and he goes, all right, John Wayne, your opponent, he's a little bit too small. He doesn't want to fight, so tomorrow you're going to rematch Orono. Like 24 hours notice.
Yeah.
What? So as soon as the weigh-in's done, I quickly go and grab my trainer and say, they want me to fight Orono, and then my trainer's like, we'll take it, we'll do it. I'm quietly confident. I got a game plan. I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow morning. Tomorrow.
Right before you fight.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you could tell me now. That'd be much more better. Yeah, no. I'll tell you tomorrow. So they go to bed and freaking out, thinking, oh no, because at that stage it'd been my most painful fight. Ended up giving me 21 stitches across the eyebrow and under the eye. And then the next morning I wake up and I said, same thing. All right, what are we doing? It's all right. So you're usually an orthodox fighter. So tomorrow I want you to fight Southpaw. It's like, what? He goes, your opponent's Southpaw. So if you stand Southpaw, so I don't know if you can see, but so if I stand this way and he's Southpaw, that means his elbow's going to come through this way.
Yeah.
But if you stand Southpaw, that means you can use his hand as protection.
As
so when
block,
he does elbow,
yeah.
you can block it.
Yeah.
Sure. So it sounded good in theory, but it's like, I've never done so. This is nuts. And then the whole time for the next, all day, just freaking out, going, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Maybe I'll do it for the start and then hopefully...
And then switch.
If it doesn't work, I'll go back to orthodox again. Even 5 minutes before walking out, I'm just sitting on the stage waiting to walk down the runway. Thinking, 100,000 people just pooping just shitting my pants. And then the fight started and I've gone Southpaw, started landing, started kicking, and then everything was working. So round 1 goes, round 2, round 3, round 4, and I've stayed Southpaw the whole time, and everything's working the plan, everything's going perfect. And then I end up dominating and end up taking his world title off him in front of 100,000 people live on Thai TV. It's like, this is the dream. This is like the Tongpo. This is like a movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely my proudest moment in the sport.
So would you say that was your best fight or your biggest fight to history?
One of.
Yeah.
There's so many. I've been lucky to have 149 fights, and that was definitely one of the highlights for sure.
Yeah, well, it's like the first time you win anything big in your life. It's just so memorable.
So that was 2000. Then the year 2004, I get an email, hey, John Wayne, we want you to consider you to fight in a Super 8 tournament in Rajanaman Stadium, which is like Lumpini and Rajanan are both like the two biggest stadiums in Bangkok.
Yeah.
It's 100,000 baht to enter, which is about $5,000, which is a lot of money back then. I never earned that much money in Thailand the whole time.
Who pays for that?
The promoter.
Yeah.
So we'll pay you 100,000, and then it's an 8-man tournament, so you have to fight 3 times in one night.
Yeah.
And if you win all 3, it's 1 million baht to the winner. So it's 1 million baht, a world title, and a trophy from the Prime Minister of Thailand.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Sign me up. So I fly over there 3 weeks before the show, go back to my camp, and then the other 8 guys are all pretty big names, and my trainer's shooting and moving at the time, so he's barely there, and, and he has no expectations of me winning, so he does like,
you'll be right, kind of thing.
Be fine. He watched me train like 3 or 4 times in the 3 weeks I'm there. And then, I was lucky my first opponent was a Russian, and then my second opponent was against the favorite from France, and I stopped him in the third. And then the final was against a Thai that had previously beat me 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
I'd never beaten him, and now we're meeting in the final, and this time I finally beat him so I got the 1 million baht, the world title, and then the trophy from the Prime Minister. It was like, yeah, and they were all live on Thai TV.
Yeah, right.
So the next day I go down to the news agent and go to the shops, and then every single newspaper's got photos, and every single magazine's got photos and interviews and stories, and then radio stations ringing up. I remember the radio rang my trainer, so I'm doing an interview in Thai, and then I remember I handed the phone back, and then the interviewer started arguing with my trainer, saying, how could you teach the Westerner to beat us at our own sport?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Like, how could you? Like, it was a disgrace.
Yeah, because it's their national sport over there.
And then he's like, well, he's been with me for 4 years. I consider him like my little bro.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, I can't not teach him.
Yeah.
And of course I want him to be great. Why wouldn't I? And then, from that moment forward, it just seemed to be an influx of Westerners that hit Thailand after that.
Yeah,
So,
you would have been an inspiration to.
So I was one of the first guys. A lot of the Westerners would come for a month and go home, or come for 2 weeks and go home. And then I was the first guy to stay there pretty much full time for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then now you see Westerners staying there like years and years, and then but before then, Like even the promoters were like, when are you going to go home? It's like, nah, I love it. I love it too much. This is awesome.
And what was it like? Like, obviously you would have been a pretty big superstar over there. What was it like coming home? And then were you still as big over here at the time?
Oh, not really, no. Even to this day, you go overseas and you go to Japan and you're fighting in front of 40,000 people. In Japan, they have a TV audience on free-to-air TV of 20 million.
Yeah.
And then you every time, so you're in your room, you catch the lift, you go down, the lift opens up and there'll be like 50 people and they all look and they all rush to the lift. And then you got to get through all the crowd to do all the signatures and the photos, and they're giving you presents and toys, and they have these professional signature boards that you sign with all gold trim around them.
Yeah,
it's amazing, but it's the novelty wears off very fast after about 2 or 3 days. Every time you go downstairs, you got to psych yourself up because you know you got 20 minutes of shit before you walk outside. It's fun, but it does get on your nerves a little bit.
Yeah.
And then. So you're a superstar for like 5-6 days, and then you come back to Australia, and then you just blend in with every Joe Blow.
No one really, unless you're in the sport, no one really knows who you are.
So on that one I just won. So I won the world title, the $1 million baht. I get back to Australia, and I thought, I'm going to ring the Courier Mail.
Yeah.
They're going to love this. So I ring them up. Can I speak to sports, please? Hey, my name's John Wayne Park. I've just come back from Thailand. I've just won this massive tournament. Explaining the whole thing. And the lady was like, yeah, look here, Sonny. It sounds like you're exaggerating this story. We really concentrate on football and cricket and the Courier Mail, so maybe ring your local newspaper. And then she hung up on me.
Yeah, right.
She didn't even say goodbye. She just hung up. I was like, what? I'm so proud and everything else.
Yeah, one of the best things you've ever done.
Representing the country, and here we go. I can't wait to finally get my name out there. And then, boom, boom, no. So, it was sort of heartbreaking, but reality.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky to go and train with George St. Pierre for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we were talking to someone the other day about that.
Yeah, went over and trained with him, and then we were side by side for the whole time I was there. We did a week in Montreal, and then we did a week in New York, and then being side by side with him, he just wherever he went, I'd never seen anyone get smashed so hard by the fans. Like everywhere he went, he'd just get inundated by, just crazies.
Yeah.
And then getting the photos is okay. And then you get that odd person that have the phone and like be like this far away and try and do the old sneaky. It's like, and then Joy would be like, mate, I can see you. Just ask me. I'm happy to take a picture.
Yeah, because he's a nice guy.
He's such a nice guy. I'm happy to take a photo. Just all you got to do is ask him. Right, I'm standing right here. And then
But you, like, for someone that doesn't know you, like, you seem like a very nice guy, but first meeting you're a very scary dude. Like, so I understand why people like trying to do a sneaky one. Like, you're pretty intimidating, so I don't blame him.
And then, so with George, like, if he went to the nightclubs and stuff, he'd have a couple of his friends that help security and help just let him live normal. And then if we went to a restaurant, like every 2 mouthfuls, he'd have to stand up, get a picture of the waiter.
Yeah.
2 mouthfuls, the chef would come out. 2 mouthfuls again, the owner of the restaurant would come. And I was just like, oh. And then it's sort of, you appreciate having your freedom too, because he's like a prisoner of his own fame.
Yeah, fully.
It's like, I want to be famous. And you see him, it's like, oh, that whole famous thing doesn't look that much exciting.
Well, that's where you kind of had it. That would have been good. You kind of had 2 worlds. You had a world where you're a superstar, and then you could come home and kind of, as you said, blend in a bit. So you get a break from it.
It's seeing what I have to go through, and then just not having any freedom or he'd go to the toilet, go to the cubicle, he'd open the door, and there'd be someone standing there. Oh, can I get it? It's like, oh, and then can I wash my hands before I shake your hand first? Just.
What were you over there with him for?
I got the opportunity to go and do 10 seminars in 10 days in all throughout Canada. So I spent the whole time there and teaching. And then after the seminars, there was 2 days spare before I had to fly back to Australia. And the owner of the camp that brought me over goes, oh, so what do you want to do for these last couple of days? I've never been to Canada, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
He's thinking for a second. Do you know George St. Pierre? Do you want to meet George? He's only like an hour down the road. I can take you to his gym and we can say good day if you want. That'd be amazing. That'd be really cool. That'd be so cool. So they bring up the camp and they said, oh, John Wayne, yeah, we know John Wayne is. Tomorrow's Muay Thai sparring day. Does John Wayne want to jump in and do some rounds? I'd love to, since I'm here, for sure. So we rock up to, we go to Montreal. We go to TriStar Gym. I got introduced to the owner of the camp, Faraz. And then everyone's got their shin pads and gloves on, and Faraz like, all right, so George, you go with John Wayne.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I remember just being like this 5-year-old girl just going, oh, George, it's so nice to meet you. Yo, this is amazing. I can't believe we and he's just looking at me like I'm some scrub.
Yeah.
And then the start of the rounds began, and then he threw like a jab, and I parried and threw a kick, and I blocked and threw something else. And I thought to myself, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to have a crack.
Yeah.
So I just started chasing him, and I'm chasing him from one side of the cage, the other side of the cage, and then he threw a lazy jab, and I parried the jab, and I threw a head kick, and I placed my shin on his neck and just left it there. And it was like one of those old westerns where the music stops and everyone goes,
Yeah.
and then everyone's like, whoa. And then we kept sparring. Then after the spar, I remember we were cooling down, and George sort of come up to me nice and nonchalant, and it's like, I just want to thank you for not knocking me out. You had the perfect opportunity. Anyone else would have, could have been their claim to fame.
Well, that's what
George,
they do. That's
George
how they
out.
get their name out. Yeah.
And then you just place it there. I said, oh, no, I just wanted to show you that I could.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted to show you that. So we did some photos, and we did the fan thing. I went back to Australia. And about 3 or 4 months later, I'm sitting on the computer just mucking around, and the phone rings, and I see it's an international number. And then it's Faraz, the owner of TriStar. He goes, hey, look, I'm sitting here beside George, and we were so impressed by the spar you guys had. There's any chance you want to come back to Montreal and train George personally for a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
And hang on. I asked my wife, hey, Angie, do you mind if I go to Canada and train? Yeah, you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Sure. So a week later, I got a ticket to go. I arrive in Montreal. And you know when you get to the airport and there's someone that's always and there's George St. Pierre. Hey, I'm over here. And I was like, holy shit, this is insane.
Did he know who you were the first time you went there?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I was so like big-eyed, like so nervous, and so like a little kid.
Just starstruck.
Just starstruck.
Yeah.
And then we're driving in his car, and he's this is the hotel I like to keep Freddie Roach and all the other famous people. And it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then next day he's down in the foyer waiting for me. And then even the baggage boys, they're like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, why is George picking you up? Well, you must be somebody, because this is insane. We've never seen George St. Pierre so much. I said, oh no, I'm just here to help him out. And then so we did a week in Montreal. And then one day randomly, hey, you ever been to New York? I've never been. Let's go.
Yeah.
So he rings his travel agent. Next couple of hours later, we're on a plane. We're flying to New York. Then we went and trained at Renzo Gracie's gym in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And then again, just like mind blowing. Just like every time you walk into the gym, you see all these superstars
All
in the
these
room.
killers, yeah.
It's like, this is too much. And then enjoy. Oh no, he's with me. And then working with George on the pads. One of the trainers, John Danaher, who's a jiu-jitsu
I know
legend.
who he is. Yeah.
He was watching George hit the pads. And then after we finished, John come up and he's whispering in my ear. He goes, oh, man, I've never seen someone improve so fast. Only in 7 days, what you've done with George is incredible.
Yeah.
I've never seen him hit so hard on the pads. But the only problem was, so George was just about to fight Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah.
And then I was there 14 weeks before the fight. So we trained for 2 weeks. And there was still 12 weeks to go. And like that situation I was talking about before about going to Thailand long term to make that muscle memory. So... And then because we only trained together 2 weeks, that last 12 weeks he would have went back into his old ways and ended up having a really hard fight against Johnny.
Yeah, he only just won that.
Just won, yeah. I thought he won. A lot of people controversially thought that Johnny won, but I thought he could have fought a lot safer and smarter. Yeah. But he put himself in jeopardy a little bit and almost lost, but happy he got the win.
Yeah, well, that's when Johnny was in his prime too. He kind of fell off the radar a bit after that.
So, another story. So, a couple... that 10 weeks or whatever it was before I left. So George was talking to me about, I want to start working with Asada. Yeah. I want to get, I want to pay for me and Johnny Hendricks to get randomly drug tests for these next 10 weeks to make sure there's no funny business, because there's a lot of speculation that Johnny could be on the special sauce. Yeah. And then, the next day, Dana White came out on an interview saying, George St. Pierre has trust issues. He doesn't believe in the UFC and what we're doing to emulate. Because they just test on the day. Yeah. And then...
Yeah, so you could juice up beforehand and then just get off it.
But with the Asada, because it's so random over those next couple months. Yeah. And then it wasn't till after the fight that all of a sudden oh no, we're going to start bringing Asada and start testing. It's like George, when they made a fool out of George, like fully ridiculed him for not playing the UFC game. And then as soon as the fight was over, all of a sudden they come up with the idea. It was like, it was their idea.
Yeah. So what? So you reckon it stems from him?
Oh, for sure,
Yeah, right.
for sure. I remember sitting at the table, the Asada come and sat with us, and George was saying, oh, look, I wanted this, and this, and I want to make sure it's an even playing field across the board.
Yeah, because he would have had a bit of like say because he was the champ at the time.
Yeah, and George is saying, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for both of us to get tested, but I want him tested before we get to the event because I don't want him cycling off it and then coming in like the Hulk.
Yeah, well, he was notorious for blowing out in between fights, Johnny Hendricks.
And then as soon as they implemented the Asada program, I don't think Johnny Hendricks won a fight after that.
That's what I said to you. That was kind of his prime, and then he dipped off after that. A lot of fighters did in the UFC after that all come in.
After training with George or anything, did you ever think, oh, I'll give UFC or MMA a shot? Or
that was already high profile, and then starting jiu-jitsu as a white belt, it would have taken me so long to get to that level.
Yeah.
And I'd accomplished so much in Thailand, and I was already a big name and already making good money.
Yeah.
In what I was doing, to go back, I would have been back on the
on the pennies. Well, that's why a lot of people get into MMA, like the elite wrestlers and stuff, because there's no avenue to really make money. Yeah. Where you were already making a pretty good living doing what you were doing.
And then luckily through one championship, they offered me like a really good contract. So so that sort of helped. And then bringing the cage Muay Thai back to the worldwide, it was like, this is awesome. I'd rather do this than, as much as I like being a fan of MMA and being involved. Muay Thai is definitely my thing. I like striking.
So did you learn anything off George? Or were you there just to teach him?
Just mainly teach. When he was rolling, I'd sit and watch, but I never jumped in, and I'd save all my energy for when it was time to do our sessions. Yeah. So, and George was, he's that guy that would go for a 3-course meal somewhere at a really flash restaurant or somewhere. He goes, all right, you ready? Ready for what? To go train. Yeah. So we just had a 3-course meal. He's like, so let's go. He goes, I want to put myself in uncomfortable positions where I'm full or
don't feel the best.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit ordinary, but I'd rather push myself and see if I can still be on top level. So I was like, if you want to go, let's go. Yeah, well, he was super well known for bringing in all them super professional ways of training, like whether it was getting people like you in. He was one of them early adapters of that. And then he's that guy that he'd set himself tasks where if he was driving through a tunnel, he'd see if he could hold his breath from all the way through the tunnel, or just little things that every single thing that he thought of was a different training method.
Yeah. Well, I read this, or I heard him in an interview once say about just making the other fighter like twitch. Like if he just like kind of like makes him flinch when he's kind of going and pretended to jab or feint. Yep. Just them twitching and like kind of clenching up wears them out. And he was one of the first to understand how much that actually takes out of their opponent, like making them clinch or feint as if they're going to get hit. Like he was just super smart for his time, man. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the nicest guy. And then what you see on TV is him in real life too. And then while I was trying to help him out with the pads and stuff, all right, so turn your shoulders. Yes, sir. Yes. Just call me sir. Like, holy crap, you're Jules St. Pierre.
So obviously you've fought in a heap of countries during your time. Yes. How many countries have you fought in? And what was your favourite?
So many countries. So I got the fight in Japan 17 times.
Yeah.
Fought in England twice, Italy 3, Holland once, Singapore 6.
Yeah.
New Zealand twice. Jamaica, I fought in Jamaica. Probably Jamaica was the most weirdest.
Yeah, because you fought Buakaw over there, didn't you?
Yeah, that's my 100th fight was against Buakaw.
Yeah.
And then I remember the promoters, hey, we got an opportunity to fight world title opportunity against Buakaw in Jamaica. I was like, Jamaica? Sure. So I remember we rock up, and then we were staying at a 5-star place in Montego Bay.
Yeah.
And then it keeps it away from Kingston because Kingston's pretty rough apparently.
Pretty ghetto,
But Montego is like really prestigious and everything else. And then they put a ring on the next to the beach outside.
Yeah.
And then they had all these grandstands, and they were expecting like over 5,000 people to come and cheer. But the only problem was they were charging US dollars in a third world country for the spectators. So every time we go for somewhere for Eid or cruising with talking to locals. Are you going to come to the event? So that's like a month's wage.
Yeah.
So then they had the fight. When the show started, they only had 100 people come. And that 100 people was the cornermen and the fighters and the friends of the fighters. There
And
was
probably tourists and stuff
locals.
that could afford it. Yeah.
So they ended up losing close to $500,000.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they had 10 fights, 10 world titles, everyone for the best of the best from every country you could imagine, thinking they were going to, wait till the world sees this. And
Yeah.
thing, no one came.
What promotion was that for?
It's called Champion of Champions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was such a...
Why did they do it in Jamaica, you know?
I think there was two financial gentlemen that had just started a new web design where hospitals could figure out what patients medication wise they could
Yeah.
work. So they sold it to all the other hospitals and made all this money.
Yeah.
And they were big fans of the kickboxing and thought, now we've got this money, let's promote the sport.
Yeah.
But they did a couple of posts on Facebook. Hey, come to Jamaica and watch it, and then without the proper promotion and proper
Advertisement.
professionalism, they just got no one there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was it's such a shame because it could have had potential to be like superstars, but
especially how big of a fight it was between you and
Yeah.
him. Like, he's a legend. I'd have seen he signed for Bare Knuckle,
Bare Knuckle.
actually. I
Yeah,
think he's
that's-
fighting today.
that's coming up.
I think it's today.
Is it today?
Yeah.
So they got Borkow, Sanchai, and all these other superstars.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
bare
but
knuckle
it's called, I think it's called Thai Bare Knuckle, so it's in Thailand.
in Thailand.
Yeah, and they're just doing Bare Knuckle there, so that should be good.
They were doing the rope fights there for the last 5-6 years, where
Yeah.
they rope their hands up like in the movie Kickboxer.
Yeah.
and that's been quite successful.
Yeah.
And they're doing outdoor shows where they're getting 20,000-30,000 people to come to those events. So
Yeah.
So surely this has got to be just as crazy,
Yeah.
just bare knuckle. So
Do you ever wish you were getting into fighting kind of now? Like, obviously you were a superstar in Thailand, but just how big fighting has become worldwide.
for sure.
Like, do you feel like you've missed out on? I'm sure you've made great money in your life,
Yeah.
but do you feel like you've missed out on a bit because you started so early in the game?
Yes and no. I'm so lucky that I was a pioneer
Yeah.
for what I did in Thailand. So I'd never want to erase that.
Yeah.
Having the opportunities and fighting in the stadiums, and like I was saying, I fought in front of that King's birthday 4 times.
Yeah.
So 4 different years I got to fight in front of 100,000 people. But yeah, seeing the guys driving around in sports cars and private jets, and the money wise is just ridiculous.
Yeah, now it is.
You see after the events when they put the prize money up on the websites on such and such just made 100,000 or 500,000. I think Kamaru Usman just made 900,000 for his
Yeah.
fight last week.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's crazy. But as good as money is, memories are priceless.
Yeah, and as you said, you've got the name of being a pioneer and the respect of everyone.
To go to another country and to get famous in a sport that's their sport.
Yeah.
For me, that's more than money.
Yeah, well, you look for your record and just the people you fought, like Cosmos and Dwayne Ludwig and Pacquiao and just all these legends. Like, they are, as you said, the pioneers, and now they're the biggest names that all the people now talk about. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you got to be proud of that.
Yeah, and then getting the respect off the Thai. So even to this day, people go to Thailand for a holiday and we're in the taxi and we mention your name. They said we're from Australia, and Australia, do you know John? And then they said, all the Thais were talking about you. It's like, and even that was 20 years ago, and they'll still be remembered from all that time ago.
So when was the last time you actually fought in Thailand?
The 2004 was the eight man that I won.
Yeah.
And then I went back in 2010 to train with Sanchai.
Yeah.
I trained with him for 4 weeks. I didn't fight, just train. I got to go to the stadiums, and then I remember seeing the fans still in the stadiums and the referees like, come and sit beside me. How you been?
Yeah, right.
So it was like going back to
You're like a homecoming.
Yeah, it was very, very warm.
So
it was a warm reception.
Would you say Thailand would probably be the best country you fought in?
For Thai boxing, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure that every single Thai. That's why you learn to be very polite.
Yeah.
Because everyone's a killer.
Well, that's what everyone says about you, how nice you are.
You learn to say your yes sir, no sirs, just because you don't want to get on the wrong side of anybody.
Yeah.
and then every time you fight too, every time you win, your next opponent's going to be tougher again. So they just get tougher and tougher and tougher. So but yeah, it's like I said, you walk into a stadium and you're the only white guy there.
Yeah.
And then if you win, next minute you got all these kids circling around you. They want to touch you, and it's
Yeah.
just the biggest buzz just to be accepted as one of them.
Yeah, I could imagine. Was there any one that you didn't fight that you wished you fought in your career?
Masato from Japan.
Yeah.
There was the K1 70 kilo division back in. I got to fight for it 2004, 2005, and it was you'd have single fights during the year, and then once a year they'd have an 8-man tournament, and that was worth 100,000 US.
Yeah.
And then every time the 2 years that I did it, they'd always put Masato in the other bracket. So I'd be on bracket A, he'd be on bracket B. So the only way we'd ever meet was the final.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was the promoter's idea to keep me away to make the
Yeah.
final more spectacular, or but he was on massive money, and he was the guy that everyone wanted to be. So he had the sports car. He was the Conor McGregor before the Conor without the shit talking.
Yeah, yeah.
He was on the face of Rolexes and selling BMs and
Yeah.
whatever he touched. He was the movie star, the commercial guy, wherever his face was planted everywhere.
Yeah, we all know how big fighting is in Japan, like with
Yeah.
Risen and K1 and all the stuff that's been there. Like their fighters they got over there are just superstars.
It was almost the promotion was based just off his profile.
Yeah, right.
So before it was the heavyweights in the K1, and then
Yeah.
they started the 70 kilos just because of his superstardom.
Yeah.
And and then it took off. It was crazy. And then once he retired, they pretty much demolished it. They got rid of it. So,
Yeah.
So
It's a shame.
but the fight against him would have been instant superstardom across the world just
Yeah.
to have that one win. But we never got to do it. So
Yeah, Spiel. And what was your hardest fight? Like whether you won or lost it, what was your hardest fight?
So I fought a gentleman called Yotsinglai from Thailand.
Yeah.
He was like, the first time we fought was at convention center in Broad Beach. He was, I think, 19 or 20, the current Lumpini champion, and he was first time overseas.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I'd already fought about 40 odd Thais. And I thought, just another Thai. But then when we fought, the bell went for the first round, and usually my hands set up everything because they're mainly kick orientated
In Thai, yeah.
So I'd use my hands to fluster him, and then I'd land my kicks easier, and then I'd do a 6-punch combo, and he'd go slip, slip, duck, slip, slip, and then he'd counter me with an elbow. What the heck was that? So then I thought, surely that's a fluke. I'll do it again. And then sure enough, he'd slip, 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 and then head kick me or something. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
He was like the human shadow.
Yeah.
I just couldn't touch him. And then so he beat me that one. And then I think 2 or 3 years later, I was on a reality TV show called The Contender.
Yeah, I remember.
And
doing
then we were both on that. And then we ended up meeting each other in the final in Singapore. And then the same deal again. So my dad was dying of cancer at the time. He was terminal. And this was going to be the last time that he's ever going to get to see me fight. So I really wanted to win for him. So the first round, but 30 seconds ago, Yotsinglai drops me. I just remember picking myself on the canvas going, I can't go down like this. Second round, drops me again. I got to get up. And then I just chase him. And then round 3, 4, and 5, I start getting more confident and more start landing. And then the fight ends, and then he because of the knockdowns, he's obviously beat me. But so it was 150,000 US for the winner and the champion of the Contender.
Yeah.
Which was global superstar. So even though I lost, it was probably one of my proudest moments that to face adversity, get dropped twice, and to still come back and to still finish strong.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't win, I was happy with the way that I could finish on my feet. And and then when I got back to Australia, I was lucky to spend, because I had a little bit more money now, I could spend the next 3 weeks with my dad before he passed. So.
Yeah, right.
And then I remember we had the fight, and then they aired it like 2 or 3 days later, and it was on the laptop, so I took the laptop to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I was sitting beside Dad, and we're both watching it, and then got dropped, and come back a little bit, and then they announced the winner, and it was probably one of the most proudest moments when you get that little
the hug of
from
dad.
your dad's going, mate, you can fight that guy 10 times,
Yeah.
you're never going to beat him, but
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you the way you fought.
Yeah.
And it made me so happy.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
so
so
good.
Dad passed, and then a year later, I get the call, hey, do you want to fight Yod Sinclair for the third time?
Yeah,
Yes, I do. And then I managed to beat him.
yeah, right.
I finally, and then I remember the fight was done. I went to my phone and there was the first person I wanted to call to say I did it, but then that realization, it's like, it's already passed.
Yeah,
Was
But
that what probably your emotional fight?
Oh, for sure. I remember because he dropped me in the first fight, and then we went the distance. And the second time he dropped me twice, and we went the distance. And then I remember walking towards the ring, and this was the first time I was going to make 35 grand for a fight.
yeah,
And I remember as I'm walking to the ring, thinking, there's a good chance I'm going to get knocked out again, but fuck, at least I'm making 35 grand. It doesn't matter. At least I'm making good money.
yeah,
And then, I remember just fighting my heart out, and then knowing that what Dad said too, saying you're never going to beat this
Yeah.
guy, and then I finally actually beat him. It's like I did it. Just going,
Yeah, you
I
have to-
wanted you to be there so bad. This is any fight that I wanted you to be there to
Yeah.
see. We could have both.
yeah. It's one of them moments in your life where you kind of can't believe you done it. And
Yeah,
then, and
yep.
then you didn't get to share it.
He
with
was
them.
my motivation too, saying that I couldn't. Oh, I'll show you that I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah,
What was probably your worst injury?
Worst injury. So I fought a gentleman called Toby Smith.
he's Aussie, yeah.
Yeah, Aussie from Perth. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a really good guy. He went to Thailand for a number of years as well and trained at the big top Thai gyms and fought a lot of the stars. And then he elbowed me in the cheek. And then the second that the elbow landed, it just felt like the hot chisel through my skull.
Yeah.
And as the referee's counting, I'm like, oh, don't worry about counting. I'm done. So I went to the hospital. And then, I'd broke my eye socket in 2 places. So they kept me in hospital for 3 days, and every couple of hours the doctor would come in. All right, we're going to do an emergency operation. We're going to we take out your eye, we put in a steel sheath in your eye socket, and then we put your eye back in, and then I'm like, and then they come back an hour later. Oh, I'm not going to operate. It looks like it's okay. And then a couple of hours later they come back. Oh, we're going to operate. We're not going to operate. We're going to operate.
Yeah.
And then after 3 days, they finally come to the conclusion. So what happens is when you get your eye socket broken, usually your eye gets sucked back. in
Yeah,
the
I've
back of
seen
your s-
people, it's sucked back and then kind of sets like that. Yeah.
And then you got double vision because your eyeballs aren't symmetrical.
yeah.
So luckily my eyeball didn't move that fast and my vision was fine. They said, oh, look, we're not going to operate now. We're going to let you go. The only thing is you can't fly home. So then the flight's in Melbourne. So I had to ring my mum to see if she would drive me back to the Gold Coast again.
Yeah, right.
And then, so we jumped in the car, drove back home. And then I was supposed to do a seminar in Monterrey in Mexico.
Yeah.
And I had to cancel that because I wasn't allowed to fly for like 6 months or something.
Yeah.
So I missed out on that one. But at the same time, so with the seminar in Mexico, I was really nervous because you hear all these stories of how dangerous and how crazy it is over there. So I go on to Google Monterrey violence, and they said, the last 5 or 6 years we've had a lot of army and patrol cars and everything. So